Hello and good morning, everyone, and welcome to your daily SITREP for Wednesday, the 3rd of September, 2025. Just as a reminder, we are going back to the old SITREP format, talk through our domestic and geopolitical SITREPs, and then jump over to the high side for our members-only early morning brief where we finish out the rest of the report. With that, good morning, Robert. Let's jump inside the Beltway here. So apparently these military JAG lawyers are going to serve as immigration judges temporarily, and this is what to help the Trump administration get through this backlog of deportations.
Good morning, Mike. That's correct. This is after the Justice Department apparently requested these JAG lawyers be sent over to the immigration courts. So the immigration courts do fall under the executive branch, which is why they can do this. There were media reports that they're looking up to 600 of these JAG lawyers to be tapped to serve as immigration judges, but the Pentagon did not confirm that number.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then let's move down to Venezuela. I guess probably most people have seen this video. That did not look like a very big boat to me, but the DOD is saying that it was carrying drugs and it was part of, did they call it Tren de Aragua or the other Venezuela cartel down there, whatever
Cartel de los Soles. No, they said this was Tren de Aragua. Mm-hmm. They said the boat was carrying 11 members that President Trump says were positively identified. In just this morning, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that President Trump is willing to go on offense to fight the drug cartels, and they're gathering assets in the region. This was in response to questions about this strike.
Mm-hmm. You know, I've seen a lot of criticism here saying this is the equivalent of, sending $1 million missile to blow up a camel in a tent in Afghanistan. Basically, you just destroyed this boat, killed everybody on there, and for what? I think there's a couple of reasons. Number one, Tren de Aragua, they were labeled a foreign terrorist organization, correct?
Correct.
All right, so I don't know what the legal implications are here, but this is basically the Trump administration is saying this would be the equivalent of an airstrike on an Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda moving material or bombs or whatever. I mean, it seems to me, right?
Correct. Yeah, that is, I think, the justification or the legal justification the Trump administration used was that FTO designation to conduct this strike.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then so DOD came out and said they're willing to go on the offensive. This to me says it's a message. There's that Chinese saying, what is it? You kill the chicken to scare the monkey. It sure seems like the release of this video is intended to send a message to stop the drug trafficking up from Venezuela, Colombia, South America, up through the Caribbean, into the United States. It seems to me like that's a pretty strong message.
Yeah, I think that's the idea is to deter any of that movement so the idea of the criticism that they're using this $1 million missile to kill a much cheaper target. I think the point is deterrence, is that now they in the Trump administration's mind, any Tren de Aragua boat that's leaving Venezuela waters is going to think twice about doing so.
Mm-hmm. And then there was also, and we don't know the details, but I just saw there was, among the criticism, they said, oh, well, there's no way, there's no proof that this was actually Tren de Aragua. And normally when they move drugs, they're in much larger boats and they have fewer people and, et cetera, et cetera. Did the DOD release any actual details on this strike?
I didn't see any details about how they got positive identification.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's go ahead and move on here to this ICE to have some spyware blocked. What's going on?
So ICE originally got a contract for spyware made by an Israeli-based company called Paragon last September, and that was blocked by the Biden administration. Well, now the Trump administration is reactivating that contract in order to give ICE this capability where they can break into phones and read private messages and break into other electronic devices.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is something like the Pegasus thing, and this is only going... this is kind of getting into the gray area where, okay, you're using it for immigration enforcement to round up criminal aliens and go after illegal aliens. Okay, got it. The problem is it's a short hop, skip, and a jump to, well, maybe we could use this over here. But is this basically what this is? They're trying to break into these illegals' electronic devices and figure out where they are?
Correct. And yeah, so far this is the only contract, but it isn't outside of the realm of possibility that other agencies would get access to either this software or a similar type of software.
Mm-hmm. And then I imagine the Biden administration blocked it because it would actually enable immigration enforcement.
I think so. A lot of the Biden administration actions were either hindering ICE immigration enforcement, or in the case of CB, of Customs and Border Protection, during the Biden administration, they were actually effectively ordering them to, instead of enforcing the border, just facilitate asylum claims in immigration.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then let's move on to this gerrymandering. So the latest here is Indiana, and I don't see any blue in that state under this proposed plan.
Yeah, this is a new map going around among Indiana Republicans, and this map apparently came from a meeting when they traveled to the White House late last month to visit for basically what President Trump was putting on an event for Indiana Republicans to push them to pass a new map. And this proposed map would flip both currently Democrat-held seats. And basically, there are two methods for gerrymandering like this. It's cracking or packing districts. In this case, they're taking Republican voters from GOP-held districts that are strong Republican districts and moving them into these currently Democrat-held seats.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Indiana would be -2 for Democrats, +2 for the GOP. Texas is +5 for Republicans. There's a handful of other states, Florida, Missouri, maybe some others. If these planned redistricting efforts go through, what are Republicans looking at here in the House heading into the 2026 midterms?
So if California's attempt to counter Texas succeeds, the Republicans are looking at +8. If California fails, they're looking at +13.
Okay. And the House Republicans have what, a 3-seat majority right now?
I believe, yeah, I actually believe 5-seat right now.
5. Okay. All right. So potentially would allow, wouldn't that be something if Republicans went through this mid-decade redistricting and still lost the House?
Yeah, I think a lot of the momentum, the base case here is that the opposition party usually flips one or both chambers during the first midterm election. Under a Republican president, Democrats typically flip. I think based on what we've previously reported about the voter registration crisis the Democratic Party is currently facing, and the current disarray going on within the party, I think Republicans are not guaranteed to maintain the House, but the conditions are probably the best they could be for Republicans to maintain a majority in the House next year.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks for that great update, Robert. All right, let's move on to our global SITREP. And Jared, let's start off with Taiwan.
Yep. So this is coming from the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC as it's better known. They announced this morning that the U.S. had revoked its authorization to ship chip manufacturing equipment to mainland China. They have one plant over there. Now, this authorization was in the form of a validated end user status. So basically, hey, we've made sure that you're good over here in Nanjing. The U.S. is revoking that. And this is not the first time that the U.S. has revoked that status for companies overall. A couple Korean companies, including Samsung and an Intel factory, all had their manufacturing plants in China experience a similar revocation. So what this really points to, I think, is the U.S. is trying to using every avenue possible to bring manufacturing out of China, and not just tariffs for incentivizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Then cutting down a little bit farther south, well, actually, I guess a little bit northeast, not just from China. The Japanese report that the Chinese Coast Guard have had vessels present around the disputed Senkaku Islands for 286 consecutive days. This is actually breaking a new record. Last year, they intended to have a 365-day record, but they only hit 215. So they did hit 355 total, but only 215 consecutive. Now, the Japanese further report that this is an unmistakable show of force, and the Chinese have changed the vessel types to be much heavier, both in tonnage and in quality, so that they can actually be permitted to stay throughout storms, which they have done so this year. That's a pretty stark difference to what the Chinese have normally been what normally they do.
Mhm. All right, and is this more or less kind of harassment and intimidation? I mean, is there any operational concern here for something larger?
This is not about harassment and intimidation. These are disputed but uninhabited islands. This is a matter of China saying these are our islands. We have law enforcement around them. It's an
So it's
assertion
more or less
of
a
dominance.
maritime occupation.
Kinda, yeah, yeah. Basically saying, hey, this is ours. You're not going to touch it.
Okay.
And Japan, obviously, they have a similar presence in the area for that exact same reason.
Okay. All right. Hey, and then on this Indo-Pacific tracker map, which you update this basically every day, just keep an eye on ship movements. Make sure that China's not about to jump over the strait. There's a blue box down there. Is that some military exercise?
Sure is. Pretty interesting. Interesting Indo-Pacific exercise that's multilateral. There's the U.S., Korea, Japan. Japan's got a significant force down there. They have one of their DDHs, which kind of looks like a small aircraft carrier, and a guided missile destroyer, and a submarine. And the 7th Fleet commander is actually down there participating as well. So this looks like it's actually going to be very well coordinated. There are a few other U.S. ships in the area, though they have not been confirmed to be actually operating in this exercise.
All right. And then do you know what they're exercising?
It's just an annual exercise that we see. It's just, the composition's a little bit weird, so I made sure to include it. And the fact that they're doing anti-submarine exercises with that Japanese sub is very interesting, because you wouldn't expect subs to be, well, I guess you would expect subs to be out in the deep ocean like that, but where you're practicing for it will also affect how you are able to conduct those maneuvers, because it's basically sonic warfare is highly dependent on what kind of water you're in.
Okay. So it's an anti-submarine warfare exercise.
Among other things, yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks for that. Let's go ahead and move on here.
Yep. Much closer to home, over in Venezuela. So President Maduro down in Venezuela is putting out a few different pieces of messaging, I think probably to see what sticks, but also see what works diplomatically. First and foremost, for internal reasons, he's accusing the U.S. of plotting to seize all of Venezuela's resources, primarily oil and gas, but he did mention gold as well. That's pretty common. He's saying, yes, they are trying to take the nation of Venezuela's resources, saying that to the people. He also attempted to sow discord in the White House by, I'm going to read the quote here, by declaring the one who rules the White House is Marco Rubio and the Miami Mafia, and that this Miami Mafia want to stain the Trump name with blood. So trying to get Trump to be personally against Marco Rubio, I don't think that's going to work, but very interesting that he would say that this is coming from essentially a Cuban expat controlling the White House.
Mm-hmm. All right. Little Marco. All right. Thanks for that, Jared. Let's go ahead and move. I'm with you. I don't think it's going to work either. 62 protests up today. By the way, I've just noticed I've been going through the emails from this post-National Day of Action that we saw on Monday, or in many cases didn't see. I noticed they didn't estimate how many actual protesters turned out. So I'm guessing it is much smaller than what they wanted, or what they maybe had anticipated. This is just another sign this protest movement has plateaued. I say that with an emphasis on the future. They have the nation's largest national protest organizing group, Indivisible, has announced their next National Day of Action coming up in October. It's going to be a really great yardstick to see they can sustain mass mobilization turnout. Obviously, 62 protests today, a little bit above baseline. However, the question is, can they continue to grow their movement? And remember, it's still early in this ball game. We're probably in maybe the 3rd inning out of 9. With that, let's go ahead and move on. That's going to do it for our daily sit rep. We are going to move on here to our early warning agenda. We're going to talk about this October National Day of Action. Robert's going to come back on, run us through the Homeland Operations update. We're going to talk about this federal law enforcement surge into Chicago. Talk about it's like every few months. Oh, maybe there's going to be another government shutdown. We'll get Robert's take on that. And then Jared's going to talk about this global governance initiative from China. That's coming up here over on the high side. If you'd like to join us, head over to FordObserver.com. Start a free 7-day trial, FordObserver.com/trial. With that, if everyone can hang on for just 2 seconds, we'll jump over to the high side and do our members-only briefing. So, Jared, go ahead, please.